All right, everyone. So in the last video, I kind of went over the official syllabus. This is the slides. You can get the slides here. The slides are just kind of also kind of a go over. It's a little bit about myself. These are some of the programs like we talked about, including a, coding program, something to draw with. You may need to draw, like, edit some raster or vector images. You may need to make some 3D models. That's Blender. We talked about storage, both external hard drives or like a USB drive, or something, a storage, cloud storage like box.com or something like that. Oops, I got moved over. You're going to need Unity version 5, or sorry, yeah, version, sorry, 6, like I mentioned, and SideQuest. Okay. All of those you can find here. Okay. Find links to those and download those. These are your restrictive classes. These are some of the things we talked about. This Disability Program and Resource Center, Safe Place, and counseling and psychological services, including their phone numbers and their emails to the official website or the web page on the SF State website. Okay. I want to talk about what we're going to be doing in this class. So, when we talk about VR, the first thing we're going to do is kind of talk about the history of VR and, what is VR? How does it differ than maybe like a 3D video game or something like that? And then you guys are going to build some basic, a very, very basic VR world. We're going to use some online software called framevr.io. By this point, hopefully you guys will have all of your equipment, which includes the headset and the um, controllers and all the stuff you're going to need. You guys will build, you'll build a very basic VR world. You'll move through it using the headset and that sort of thing. Then I'm going to teach you guys how to build a more complex VR world using what we already know. In theory, what we already know is Unity. Next week, I'm just going to do a really, really quick refresher course of Unity, like the basics of it. This should hopefully be a refresher for everyone. Then we're going to get more into like, okay, now that we know how to use Unity, how do we apply certain code that lets us do certain things in Unity? So we're going to set up Unity to allow for headsets. This means like when I move my headset, it'll move around in the Unity world. Controllers, we're going to set up controllers so that like if I don't want to get into too much right now because we'll talk about this, but there's controllers here. If I were to press the control, point my controller, it lets me point my joystick that allows me to move. Or there's another sort of kind of hard to see here, but there's kind of like a little joystick here. If I move that, it can move around my headset or my vision within the VR world, that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about that. During this process, you guys will be building a basic world from scratch. You'll build a world in Unity. You'll find, models, or you can build your own models for it. Just want to show some examples of it. So we're gonna set up like how to see how we're like moving around in the world. And I think she showed, see how like she's holding objects. She's like picking up like, like flowers and things like that. That's kind of what you guys are going to be doing. So we'll talk about how to set up VR representations of your hands because you can move them around. See how this person's in the headset, he's moving around. You can move forward in the world. I don't know if he found these or he built them himself, but we'll go over this real quick. It's not too hard, but uh, you can kind of do what's called teleporting, which we'll talk about what that means. You can pick up items. I think you can it's going to pick up a gun, a bullet or something. Sorry, these are cans he's picking up. And you can pick up a little gun and fire a bullet at it. A little pea shooter. Beep, beep. Okay. This also may change. This is what I did last semester, but I haven't fully decided if I'm gonna keep it that way or whether we'll change it. This person built kind of like a little dinosaur world where you can walk around and there's like dinosaurs. Okay. All right. So that's kind of like the first third of the semester is just like how do we build a world? How do we use the software? How do we export it as what's called an APK file so we can load it into our VR world and that kind of stuff. Then what we're going to do is build what's called an influenced world. Influence means like we're going to use user experience and we're going to get into the psychology of like how do you get people to do what you want them to do without having to literally tell them. So we'll talk about design influence, psychological influences. We'll kind of relate this to what's called social VR, which is like you're working with other people and things like that. So here people were, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but it's like people built little worlds where like you're trying to get someone to do something specific. So it's like, oh, where do I go? Well, why don't you go to the thing that's like really, really bright? So like you walk over to the bright part of the world. Whoops. I'm just trying to grab something here. Yeah, so it's like, oh, see this bright thing? It's a sword. Probably want to pick that up because it's real bright. And then you kind of like, I think in this case you were supposed to play pool with it or something. So, so if you see a pool table, like what do you do with it? Well, you put it in there. Okay. So we'll talk about that. And then you'll do a little research with this. You'll also do some testing. You guys, where after you build your world, you'll test it with other people and see how they did, that kind of stuff. And then the final world was what I had them do was they built what I called a researched fun world, which is to say they came up with an idea and then they kind of researched it with people to sort of say, okay, here's my idea for a world. Would this be entertaining? So for instance, if it was like a medieval world, it's like, okay, what do people want to do in a medieval world? Do they want to slay a dragon? Do they want to drink mead? Do they want to sing Viking song? Like what do they want to do, right? And so the idea is like, what do the people want to do? And then what would those interactions be like? Would they be picking things up? Would they be dropping things off or turning things on and off? That kind of stuff. Would they, so the idea is like you're going to research an idea and do a little pre-production of idea thinking and logic and things like that. And then you're going to build a world based on that. Okay. I don't have too many videos from the last one because we presented this in person, but I'm going to have more recordings because I like having a recording. But this person like built a world where you like walk around and explore this like spooky castle. And I think you do like, I'm not going to play the whole thing. You guys can watch it on your own, but it's like, uh, you kind of walk around and I think you have to pick up like a magic spell book and things like that. So that's kind of the idea. Hopefully that gives you kind of an idea of what we're going to do. If you go to the slides, you can also see examples of this. Here's some examples of students' work if you want to take a look at it. Okay. All right. That's kind of it for today. It's syllabus day. People don't do a lot on syllabus day, but in the next video, I want to talk about what your homework is. Okay. And some of it is we have to start getting into the legal aspect of you guys working with taking out the expensive equipment and things like that. So we'll talk about that in the next video. Okay.